Hi, I'm Sal Mercogliano, Associate Professor of History at Campbell University, a former merchant mariner, and an instructor in maritime industry policy, maritime security, and maritime history. Today's episode on what's going on in shipping, I was going to give you a very catchy title, and one of my little things I like to do is plays on movies. But I have to tell you, I don't want to do that today because of the topic I want to talk about. I was going to talk about several things. I haven't had a video posted in a few days. I apologize. Been off my son's birthday. Quick little trip and back in. Got to get better about recording videos before I leave. So there's content there for you. I apologize about that. But I was going to talk. There's a lot of news going on. I can fill episode after episode of information here. This one in American Shipper right here. Top 10 liners control 85% of market and they're not done yet. So, I mean, there's a lot of information going on out there. There's literally a story I can dissect for you, give you a 10-minute block on it that I think you'd find interesting. But the one I want to talk about today is this story, not 85% of the market's controlled by 10 companies, but this story, which really got me the other day. Force majeure declared, COVID hit Ital, Liberia, returning to Italy with body of deceased captain. All right. You see that story. There's a couple of things about this. Number one, force majeure. Force majeure is a contractual term that's used. Basically, it refers to a force of nature. Mariners are, by definition, heathen, terrible people. So they don't believe in God. So therefore, they don't have active gods. You have force majeure. That's not true, obviously, but this is the topic. And in this story, to me, I have to tell you, is a really bad one about this. So this is the Italian flag container ship, the Ital Libera, which is sailing back to Italy. The vessel had an outbreak of COVID on board. Now, one of the interesting things when we saw COVID hit last year in 2020, ships were pretty, except for the cruise liners, were pretty free of COVID. Because of the small nature of the cruise, the isolated nature of cruise, you don't see a lot of interaction. So the crews really maintained themselves separate. That became an issue later on about crew rotation that I'll get to. This vessel, anyway, was deployed on the Far East to South African Express, connecting ports in China and Taiwan with South Africa and via Singapore. So, anyway, the ship, which is operated by Hapag Line, came out with an update on May 6th saying that the crew members had tested on board. The ship was going to be leaving Durban and was going to be rerouted to the port of Jakarta in Indonesia to undergo a quarantine. Well, suffice it to say, word comes in that the master of the vessel, 61-year-old Angelo Capero, died. And now no port will allow this vessel in. No Asian port's going to allow this vessel in because of the dead master and the fact that COVID is on board the vessel. And this is now forcing the ship to literally turn around from heading to Asia from South Africa. And she's now heading to the Suez Canal to route through back to Italy to deliver the body of the ship's master. And this story in itself, just to me, encapsulates the plight of the merchant mariners on board. I talk a lot about ships on board here, different types and everything. But I think one of the things we need to remember is that all these vessels have seafarers on them, crews that walk their decks, that make world commerce move. About 1.2 to 1.3 million seafarers man the 50 to 60,000 vessels over 1,000 gross tons that we rely on to move the world's goods. It's actually a very small percentage of the world population. If you think about it, it's really essential. I was a merchant mariner for 3 years sailing with the United States Merchant Marine, worked for them 4 years ashore. So I didn't have a long period of time sailing with them. But mariners today come from all over the world, largely from key areas: Philippines, Southeast Asia, India, officers from the Ukraine, Eastern Europe. Uh, and these mariners have a very difficult life. They're away from home for long periods of time. And to put that into context, the same time that this story came in about them rerouting the Ital Libera to head back to Italy to return the body of the ship's master because they were refused entry in all these ports, this story came out on Splash 24/7. Seafarers, scum of the earth. Now, I have to tell you that I take that one very personally because I was actually referred to by this title at one point. I was sailing on a vessel. This was a mixed Navy Merchant Marine crew. And one of the Navy officers on board referred to the Merchant Marine crew, me, and along with the other merchant mariners on board, as scum of the earth. And people were warned to keep clear of us because of this. Now, this story was written by a former boss of a shipping line. Frank Coles wrote this one, and he wrote about this. And I just want to read something here. When you choose going to sea as a career, did you know you were becoming the scum of the earth? That's the question a senior executive of large shipping management asked me as I was having a drink with him in Hong Kong. My reply was no, but in fact, in my day, we were not as badly treated as seafarers are today. The farther east in the world we have gone to look for cheap labor, the worse become the plight of the mariners. And it's really true, I have to say. We treat mariners pretty poorly here. They have not been able to get things like the vaccine. They have not been able to be given priority for travel. In many cases, mariners over the past year, 2020 particularly, were stuck on board their vessels. They could not leave. And this created a crisis, a large crisis. I think a lot of the reasons we see a lot more accidents going on right now is crew fatigue, and crews are not happy being on the vessels. You got to understand, when you can't get off a vessel, that sounds bad, or actually it doesn't sound bad. You're stuck on a vessel, you get food, you get everything you need, you're getting paid, it's great. But your relief's not there, and your relief isn't getting paid when they're on the beach. And that relief may not be there by the time it's time for you to get off. And oh, by the way, if you're stuck on board for extra months, you may not come back to that job. And this story, which again, I'll have all the links to it in the show notes, really goes in details talking about that. Add to the fact these stories. And again, I just want to add these stories because it kind of builds on this idea here. So the International Transportation Federation, Workers Federation, posted this report. This is on GCAM. Ship abandonments hit record in 2020. The ITF said today it helped seafarers recover nearly $45 million in owed wages last year, while cases of ship abandonment nearly doubled. This is basically owners just abandoning vessels. You'll see right here. The database hit a record high of 85 in 2020, up from 40 in 2019 to 34 in 2018. And warnings that this may be just the tip of the iceberg, that more may be coming down the road. Again, if operators cannot get money, if there's issues here, we may see vessels abandoned by their owners. Now you're sitting there going, well, vessels abandoned by the owners. That seems strange, Sal. Could that possibly happen? Yeah. You have the story of here just in April of the Syrian chief mate who is stranded on his vessel in Egypt because the ship was arrested in Egypt. This is not Ever Given. This is an entirely different ship. He was stranded on his vessel for 4 years. 4 years. Not allowed to leave. Egypt would not give him a visa to allow him to leave the country. They refused to permit him. He had to remain on his vessel that was overrun with roaches and rats. He had to swim ashore every 2 to 3 days to get food, water, and charge his phone, and then get back to his vessel by using rafts or whatever else means he could to get back out. Absolutely, just a horrific story. Muhammad Ali Aisha talks about the story. It's a story that was in the BBC. Got a lot of attention. Just an amazing element. We see the Ever Given. Ever Given is still locked up in the Suez. She has been there now for over 2 months, and the crew trapped on board. 5 of the crew members have been able to rotate home, but again, you're seeing a vessel trapped there. It may come to the point that Evergreen and the ship's owners may just abandon the vessel, just write it off. We don't know yet, but this is a significant issue going on around the world. And we see this, and we talk about the fate of these mariners, and they get forgotten all the time. There was a story a few weeks ago in G Captain here, negotiations over seafarers' minimum wages increase breakdown. Just to look at this story, I have to tell you this again. Here's the International Transport Workers Federation representing seafarers. They were working to get an increase. They sought a $1.40 per day increase from the current $641 monthly minimum wage set in 2018, equating the $683 per month increase starting in January 22. $641. It's less than 20. It's a little over $21. $21.07, I think, a day is what international workers are going. There's provisions that were finally passed that prohibit workers from being on a ship for more than 11 months. But those were waived during 2020 because crews couldn't get off. So it's one thing to be stuck on a vessel for a long period of time, but then to be paid these minuscule wages. And this is, again, something we should all be aware of, because our goods that we're paying low dollar transportation costs is really on the backs of these seafarers, these mariners, in many ways. And we see that being done. NPR story: many seafarers are stranded aboard ships because of the coronavirus. Even when ships are able to come into ports, they can't get off. They're stuck on board. They're unable to basically get off the vessel. Understand, even before the virus, it was very hard for mariners to get off vessels in ports. Ports tend to be sealed. You can't come and go. So even if you can get off a vessel, unless you are recognized by that country as entering the port, the country, very difficult. Most ships are not in port for more than a day or so. There's not enough crew members on a vessel to just let the crew go. And so most crew members are stuck on board, and maybe if they have some time, they can get ashore to a facility on the port, bar, entertainment, or restaurant, maybe the Seamen's Church, and get a little bit of time off the vessel. But the glamorous life of a seafarer, visiting strange ports of call and going off and excursions, that does not happen too much. And instead, it's very much Groundhog Day. Every day is a Monday. You're working at least 12 hours a day, if not 16 hours a day, for however many months you're on a vessel. I really want to recommend to you, and again, I'll have this in the show notes, a report done by Josh Tallis and a few others over the Center of Naval Analysis for the United States that talked about the plight of seafarers during COVID-19. Excellent work, a great little summation, really looks at that issue in some details, talks about the key issues of the mariner crisis. And again, we're seeing that unfold today. We've got ports in southern China that are being closed or slowed down because of COVID. COVID's not gone, even though everything may be returning back to normal within the United States. The United States is the exception, and we're seeing this issue of shutdown still facing us. And this story, again, come back to the Ital Libera and having to return to Italy to return the master. Again, Italy wasn't even on the trade route for this vessel. And now she's returning home to bring back her dead captain when they couldn't even get him off to typically fly him back home because of COVID-19 and the fact that the crew had been infected. They will not be allowed to go into ports. Again, I think we take for granted many times how our trade comes to us. And we talk about ships, we talk about tragedies and disasters, but again, there are seafarers on board all these vessels. And I just wanted to leave that with you. I think it's really important to be thinking about them as we continue forward. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's not a great topic. I apologize, but I think it's an important topic to discuss. If you like the video, please subscribe, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos when they come out. Give it a thumbs up so other people can find out about the issues surrounding global shipping today. This is Sal signing off.